So why would a company want to part with a unit, GE Capital, that accounts for 2 out of every $5 it earns in profit? Bill George is here to discuss. He's former CEO of Medtronic and now professor of management practice at Harvard Business School. Bill, great to have you back. Take us inside the mind of the CEO, inside the boardroom. Why do you do this?
Well, I think, Tyler, Jeff is taking GE back to its roots of getting transportation, energy, healthcare, industrial businesses where it can use its research and development, its capital expenditures, and, by the way, its financing clout on industrial roles. But the consumer finance business has gone the wrong way. It's very hard to get good returns today in the new regulatory era we're in this field, particularly if you're not a bank the size of Wells Fargo. And I think that, and getting rid of the real estate, these things really made GE into a conglomerate, and I think the market couldn't figure it out, and I think a lot of customers couldn't figure it out. So I think it's good. The conglomerate model, we didn't challenge it under Jack Welch because he was managing so well, but I think today it doesn't make any sense. And so I think the integral unit he has makes a lot of sense. And keeping the financing. Jeff once told me, he came to visit me in Medtronic when he was in charge of the whole imaging business, and he said, look, we use the financing to support our sales of MRIs and CAT scanners and all the equipment they sell. And so the same is true in jet engines. The same is true in the energy business. They use these very effectively. But that's very different than consumer finance. And I think GE got way too dependent back when Jack was CEO. The only question I have, Tyler, is why didn't he do it sooner?
Yeah, well, a lot of people ask the same question, particularly in light of what has been an underperforming stock price. So in this case, Bill, it gives them more sort of strategic focus. Smaller is better. They won't have as much profit now. They're hoping, I guess, that they'll have it later on. Do you see, you mentioned the medical imaging business. Some people see that now as not fitting as well as it once did in a company that is focused on industry and infrastructure.
Well, I wouldn't agree with that. I think GE should be doing more, not less, in healthcare. I think the opportunities, Tyler, as a growth industry, healthcare is where it's at. Energy is too, by the way. And I think using their technology and their innovation and the kind of things he did in the energy side, eco-imagination, use the same thing on healthcare, Tyler. That's their sweet spot. This is the real GE that Jeff's taking the company back to, and I think that's exactly where they should be. And they should be pushing, this large equipment. That's what GE does. You know, a company like Medtronic does implantables. So this is what they do well. And I see no reason why they wouldn't continue to try to do this around the world and build their global business in a rapidly growing market.
And this is now Jeff Immelt's company totally. He got rid of NBC Universal, which, of course, owns CNBC, which produces this program, and also now a big part of the Welch legacy of the old General Electric, right? Quick thought?
Well, I think Jeff was too slow on that, but I have some empathy too. I think he felt he needed to he knows the lead times to develop innovation, new ideas, and he wanted to go to a slower transition. I wish he'd done it sooner than 13 and a half years. Certainly on the NBC side. I talked to him a few years ago after he got rid of NBC, and that made infinitely good sense. And I think now this makes sense. He could have done it a few years earlier, but he's basically restructuring his balance sheet too. He is downsizing, but he's taking a lot of capital off the table. And he's doing a lot of good things in that regard. So he's giving his shareholders something closer to an industrial, high-tech, pure play. And that's where Jeff wants to go. That's his background. And I think it's the absolute right thing to do because most of GE's executives come out of these fields. And so I think you'll see the company be much more successful in the future. And I think its customers, its employees, and shareholders will rally around the new GE, not being caught up in the ego of being the biggest, but being caught up in being the biggest in each of their fields and being really excellent and having an integrated strategy as they now have. So kudos to Jeff.
Thank you so much for being with us. Always enlightening. Bill George with Harvard Business School and a former CEO. So